Hi, I'm Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers and creatives, and this is Write Your True Story, how to use your story to grow your business, inspire millions, and leave a legacy. And today, my guest is Gabrielle Dolan. She's a global thought leader on authentic leadership and business storytelling. She's worked with thousands of high-profile leaders from around the world, helping them to become better leaders and communicators using the art of business storytelling. Gabrielle is a highly sought-after international keynote speaker and works with some of Australia's top 50 ASX companies. Gabrielle is also the best-selling author of Ignite, Real Leadership, Real Talk, Real Results, Storytelling for Job Interviews, and Hooked, How Leaders Connect, Engage, and Inspire with Storytelling. Her latest book is Stories for Work, The Essential Guide to Business Storytelling, and it was rated in the top 100 business books sold in Australia last year. Hi.
Hello, what an introduction. Thank you.
I really wanted everyone to hear that specifically because sometimes I shorten it, but you just nail it. You nail so many of the parts of this topic that I want people to listen to. So how about you tell us a little about what you do and any projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, well, obviously from that introduction, I do a lot on storytelling. So it's almost, I've been doing this for 14 years. So I left the corporate world almost 14 years ago to this week. And so I teach leaders how to do storytelling. But the current project is, it's probably a little bit of a boring project. It's rebranding and redoing the website. So it's just, you know, modernizing everything and, but yeah, redoing branding and website and photo shoots. You end up feeling like a science experiment with everyone, you know, don't like that photo, don't like that photo, like, but that's the current right now project at the moment.
That's awesome. It's always fun. It's like painting your whole house and getting new furniture, you know?
Yeah, it is. I always think our websites are like feature walls, you know, they look really great. And then about 3 years later you go, don't really color anymore.
It's so true. So true. Well, let's talk about you. I watched some of your videos. You really do encourage people to be authentic and vulnerable in their in communication in business. So why is that important to you to really encourage and inspire people to talk like humans and in business?
Yeah. Well, I guess, you know, if we go back to when I actually started doing what I was doing, I was working in the corporate world. I was working in one of Australia's largest banks. I was a senior leader. And towards the end of my, you know, career there, I was in some change management roles. And what I noticed is when you used a personal story to get your message across, people really resonated with it. And I sort of started thinking, you know, I think there's something in this power of using personal stories. And then I started to reflect on the really good managers that I'd worked with and the ones that I thought I would want to work with. That's what they were doing. They were showing vulnerability. They were sharing personal stories. I'd go to conferences and you'd see, you know, 10 speakers over 2 days. And the ones that I thought were amazing were the ones that were sharing personal stories. And, you know, I'm sure you and your audience, you can think of a speaker you heard speak 10 years ago. And I can almost guarantee you the only thing you can remember from it is the story they told. So, so I just, you know, that was 14, 15 years ago. And now, and I look around and what I saw then was people in business thinking because they have this position of authority, they have to be bulletproof, they have to know all the answers. They, you know, if they show any form of vulnerability and emotion, it's seen as a weakness. And I just think now that people are not relating to that. And the ones that can embrace vulnerability and emotion and share something of themselves are really relating to their employees.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. How do you get someone in, you know, who's used to that sort of bulletproof posturing, you know, kind of fear to warm up in business? Actually warm up. What's
my warm-up technique? And you're right, it is actually warming them up to it. So I run half day or full day training sessions with, you know, leaders in business. And look, some of them are there going, great, I want to really learn how to tell stories more effectively. But I know a lot of them are there thinking, oh, come on, storytelling in business, give me a break. Or, you know, I'm a very important person. I'm the CFO, so why would I need stories? So I do warm them up, and through using a lot of examples, I show them that just sharing personal stories, it's not about your deepest, darkest fears or, you know, secrets or fantasies. It's sharing the day-to-day stories, and even those little day-to-day stories about when you were a kid or your kids, or something that happened on the weekend. It makes you more human. And I think when they realize it's just the little stories that they have to share, they step into it a bit more. What I find sometimes funny or cute, or I'm not sure what it is, but we work with these very senior people, and at the end of my workshop they share their story, and it's just, you know, on paper it's not very emotional, and they will start to share it, and then they get halfway through and they go, and they become quite emotional, and it's like, oh, and they often go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's happening. I go, it's called emotion. It's just like, and it's not an emotional story. It's just the fact that, you know, they're reliving it, so it is emotional to them.
Yes. What about, like, how can you speak towards entrepreneurs who are really putting themselves out there, right? They're the face of their business. They're the backbone of their business. They're the writers of their business, usually at first anyway. Hopefully they're writing their own stuff, but even if they're just speaking it and someone else is putting it together, it's still their stories. What is it about being authentic and vulnerable when you're growing a business that can help you grow that business?
Yeah, look, it's really important for entrepreneurs to share their stories, and I say stories because it's not normally just one story. When we say the story, we often think of how the business started, and when we go with that, if we just stick with what sometimes ends up being a timeline. I started this, and then that happened, and they're not very interesting. It's a timeline. What's more powerful is the little stories that happened along the way, you know, something that happened one day and how it set you back. I think just naturally humans relate more to people, you know, have overcome struggles. I mean, you know, it's your typical Hollywood movie, isn't it? You know, the hero's journey.
Yes.
But if you're just, anyone that starts a business is going to have setbacks. It's just the way it is. And so if it's almost like if someone's sharing a story about their business and they're not showing any vulnerability, they're just going, oh yeah, it started and, you know, had a great start and blah, blah, blah. People are going, it doesn't even sound real because, you know, it's not real. And then also like the reaction is then, well, great, good on you.
Yeah.
So it is sharing, you know, the struggles that people do relate to it. And it's just human nature. We as humans, we relate to that.
And I think that they would basically, by telling our personal stories, whether they're little stories about what's going on in our life or the big story, it seems like you will attract the right client. You'll attract the right customer. So people are afraid of losing, like, oh, what if I, you know, freak somebody out? But there's so many more people that will be attracted to you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's funny that I love quotes, and a quote I, you know, came across in my early 20s, that I've just lived my life by. And I should know I should find out who said it, but I don't think I have. I don't know what the key to success is, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody.
Oh yeah.
So when we stay safe with, and it's even in the way we communicate, whether we're using stories or not, but when we stay really safe with our stories, they won't, you know, they just won't please anybody. But when you do show vulnerability, and this is one of the reasons business people and entrepreneurs say, I won't share that story because it could be seen as a sign of weakness. There might be one or two people that see that as a sign of weakness, but 98% won't. They will see it as a sign of strength. So, and you're right. You're like, if they're the people that see it as a sign of weakness, then you don't want to be working with those people. You know, I know in my business, you know, one of my values is around being very protective of my calendar and my family. So I have clients who often ask me to work during school holidays, and I say, no, I can't do that at school holidays. And some people go, oh, you should just tell them you're busy. And I was like, you know what? If a client doesn't want to work with me because I'm spending time with my family, that is not the client I want to work with. So it doesn't matter.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah.
I recently realized that I was really embarrassed by a couple of years ago. I had a terrible breakup. I had 4 good friends die, really weird stuff. But I got taken under, with grief, depression. And I was terrified to tell people that, like, because I was like, oh, I was a life coach, I'm a teacher, I'm, strong woman, blah, blah, blah. And
together.
What did you say?
You should have it all together then.
Oh yeah. Don't ever let them see you sweat. And the more that I shared, and the more that I was vulnerable, even to friends, to families, to colleagues, the better I felt, first of all. And with little baby steps, people came and helped me. I mean, they were just gracious to me, because I'd been gracious to them at some point and didn't even think about it. And I was like, wow, this is actually awesome. And in retrospect, now when I see it in someone, I'm able to say, no, you're going to be able to talk about this someday, and it's actually going to help somebody else. So I love how we bond on that. You have a great little tidbit that you put in your email to me. So to illustrate this, where you failed English in your final year.
I did. And again, it's one of those things, I've written 4 books. I've got a few other books on the go. And people just look at me and go, wow, you're amazing. How have you written so many books, these books? And I just sit there and I go, well, I don't know. I go, and I did fail the last year. I failed English on my last year. And people just go, how have you written 4 books? And I go, well, see, there you go. And I think sharing those things and, help, because there could be an argument to say, oh, you shouldn't say you failed English, because then you will lose respect. Mm-hmm. And I went, oh God, no, I won't. It was like, I still have all the school reports that my teachers ever wrote about me. And my year 10 English teacher wrote this comment about that I have no grasp of common grammar, vocab. It's just like, and my executive assistant who reads all my work says not much has changed. It's like, I know, just get good editors. That's all you need.
Exactly. Yeah. And Einstein failed math, so
absolutely. So, and it's just sharing that again. It does highlight sharing those things, because people can put people put me on a pedestal. They put senior people on a pedestal. And every time you share these little things that you're just human, it makes you more relatable. It makes you more likable. People, it's more, they give you more respect. They trust you more. The fact that you're telling them something like that, there's a greater level of trust. So it's just, it's sort of, it feels like a no-brainer not to do. Yeah.
It really does. It's almost, okay, so we do feel like it's a no-brainer. We're writers, we're talkers, we're speakers. And I guess the idea is to allow people, like you said, I think the key that I really love that you said is that you can start with small stories. Yeah. I love that. So far, no one said that on the summit. And I really love that it could be the weekend. It could be recent, because even my brain goes to these big lavish things sometimes. But when I see someone talk, or even on a blog post, and this is what I love about Write Your True Story, I'm not necessarily talking about books. That's just one way. But the other ways, which are very effective, blog posts, email blasts, and social media posts, that kind of thing. I feel I give people more attention. I don't particularly do social media as much, except for marketing, but I'll cruise over and it'll be something about their dog, or literally walking through the forest, or something that touched them and yesterday. And it makes me feel like they're next to me. It makes me feel like this is a human being that's living life like a normal person. And wow, they have a business. Can you speak a little bit towards how people like to hire people and not necessarily hire businesses? And also, I think in corporate, I heard a thing that said that people leave people. They don't leave businesses. So this people thing.
Yeah, people, I mean, there's and a lot of research to back up. People leave managers, they don't leave companies. So, they will just they will not want to work with the manager they're working. So that's why they leave. And also, it's also too, it's people hire, like if people want to work with people they like, and that's, they hire them as in employees, or they will hire you in as a consultant, or whatever it is you're doing, because they want to work with you. And there's a lot of, people think we make decisions logically, but we're humans and we make decisions emotionally. Yeah. So if you're having a conversation with a potential client, if they like you, and obviously what you're offering's got to be appropriate, but if they like you, they will justify any way they can why they should be working with you. Yes. But the main reason is they've already made up their mind that they want to work with you.
Yes. And stories elicit emotion. I mean,
obviously. Yeah, and you've got to get in, and stories, sharing is just a personal story. It's emotional. It can fast track a relationship. So I know, for example, when I go in and run training with leadership teams, these could be a leadership team that they have spent years working together, and I run a half-day workshop with them, and they walk out going, oh, wow, I just feel so much closer to everyone. And I didn't know that about you. I've known from you for 4 years. I did not know that about you. So it's just this, it's almost like if you give something of yourself, people will give something back. And that is, that just strengthens relationships. It's like when you talk about your best friend, you say, you have some friends that you share stuff that you got. I would never tell anyone else, but I'll tell them. And that is because the relationship is rock solid strong. And that's, you can do that in business. You can strengthen relationships by sharing. Yes. I mean, not sharing what you do with your best friend, but sharing something.
Yes. Yes. You said something. Oh, I was curious, because I was about to say, sharing and being connected is like in the American culture, it's sort of like we have to do everything by ourselves. It's like, you can't do it alone, and you can't do it privately, and you can't do it holding up a facade, and you should be strong enough to figure it all out on your own. And that's just like deteriorates people inside. Like I've seen a lot of depression from this whole I got to do it by myself thing.
Yep.
And so when we tell our stories and when we connect, all of a sudden we don't feel so alone. And I feel like we also give other people permission to reach out and connect. Is it the same in Australia and in business, in terms of kind of you kind of almost feel like you have to do everything by yourself, and so sharing might be a little bit awkward?
Probably. But what I do, but again, the power is once you share your story, people, like, it's like, oh my God, I've had a similar situation, and they can help you, or it helps them. What I find is you share a story about, for example, I can share stories about the struggles, I'm having with my kids at the moment. And it was like people going, and I feel like it's just all too hard. And then you get all these responses back going, oh, I'm so glad you feel that way. I thought I was the only person that felt that way. So it is sharing these stories. And I think you touched on before about, on LinkedIn posts and social media. I know, I try to write a post about once a week. By far, the biggest, likes and shares and comments I get is when I've shared stories about either my children or something that's happened to me. And I've just shared the story. And I don't try to share the story just for the hell of sharing the story. I'm storytelling with a purpose. So I always try to share the story to say, this is the message out of it. And the personal stories always get the most traction on social media.
Yes. Conscious storytelling is awesome too, because when you get conscious about why you're writing the story or how to structure the story so that people get it, you want it to be clear. I almost find like when I do that, and I've seen it in my clients, there's an aha you get from writing it that way, as opposed to just throwing a story on there. If you actually think about what's the purpose, what's happening here, I feel like I get an aha.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the real discipline in sharing stories in business, because there is a difference between just sharing stories, privately.
Tell us more.
Yeah, well, you start with the purpose. So the first thing I say is, what is the message you want to get across? And only one message. As a lot of people go, oh yeah, I want them to understand this, this, and this. And okay, there's too many messages. So one message, one story. And then the default is we try to find a business example to demonstrate that.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say, what does this feel like outside of a work context? So, for example, a lot of people, I do a lot of work with companies on how leaders communicate their company values through personal stories. So the process I go through is, say there's a story on doing the right thing. A lot of people have values on doing the right thing, or integrity. Integrity is a big value. So I go through, so what does that mean to you? So personally, what does that mean to you? And then they start saying things like, well, to me, doing the right thing or integrity is about doing the right thing when no one's looking, not just when, and it's about respecting people. So I go pick one of those. And so doing the right thing when no one's looking, it was like, what does this feel like outside of work? And then I get them to come up with a personal story to demonstrate that. So if I can just spend another minute or so on that answer, it was like, I remember doing this with a senior leader, and it was exactly on that. It was like doing the right thing. What does this feel like outside of work? And she, went through the process, and then she shared a story about when her father was a professional swimmer.
Oh, wow.
And in the 1960s, he was trying out for the Australian team to make the Olympics. And this was, in the 60s, so there was no technology. So he's swimming, he was winning his race. He did the tumble turn at the end, and he missed the wall. And he went back to touch the wall. And he lost the race. And so he never made it to the Australian squad and never made it to the Olympics. And the judges said that they actually didn't realise he had not touched the wall, and they would not have known. And she said, I always ask Dad, do you ever regret going back to touch the wall? And he said, I've never regretted that, because if I didn't, I would have to spend the rest of my life knowing I did the wrong thing. And doing the right thing is doing the right thing all the time, regardless of who's watching. So she shared with me that she shares that story with her team. And when they get down to making decisions, like something will come up and they'll go, what should we do here? They will go, well, technically we don't have to do this, or legally we don't have to do this. And she will go, okay, I know technically and legally we don't. This is our go back and touch the wall moment. What's the right thing to do? And she goes, and they all go, well, that's the right thing to do. And she goes, right, decision made. That's the right thing to do.
Yes.
So she talks about that, everyone has values, but by sharing the story, these are values in action, not espoused values, because we understand it.
That was awesome. Thanks for that. I got chills when you said it.
But can you see, without the story, it wouldn't, like she could just say doing the right thing means doing the right thing all the time. You could say that, but without it's only with the story that you go, wow, that is really powerful.
Yes. Oh, great. I love that. So another question is, you've written some great books on storytelling and business. Which one did you like writing the most?
It's sort of, it's one of those ones when if someone says, have you got a favorite child? Yeah, you sort of do sometimes. It depends on the day. My latest one, Stories for Work, I probably would say I enjoyed writing the most, only because I wrote it quite quickly, in that it's almost a collection of a decade of my life's work. And what it is, it's a compilation of other people's stories. So therefore I had the real pleasure of hearing other people's stories. So like, there's, stories for presentations, a chapter on that. And that means there's, all these stories in that, and stories for sale. So
love it.
I actually really enjoyed writing that one. And it's, it's, as you said in the promo, it was rated number 70 in Australia's top selling books. And considering there's, tens of thousands of books sold, making the top 100 was pretty special.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm so excited. I'm gonna read that one. I've got so many books to read.
It's an easy read. It's a very easy read because
I love, and I do. I'm so in love with stories. I'm so in love with the shorter compilation stories too. Have been something I've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
You have a great free gift on your website.
I do have a gift. So, and people are finding this really valuable. So literally it's, the usual, sign up to it. And it's a 7-day storytelling starter kit. So what would happen is every day for 7 days, you will get an email from me, which contains a really, really short video on literally getting you started thinking about how you can start using storytelling in business. So if anyone wants to do that, they're more than welcome to sign up.
Sign up for it. I mean, I think one of the things that I love at this point is I really love going back to the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
I feel like I piled on a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and I still get stuck, and I find that instead of trying to make it more complicated, I've really enjoyed going back to experts like you and going, oh, that's right. How did I forget the very basics? Or it just invigorates me one more time. So thank you for that.
Excellent thing. And then also too, I think the storytelling starter kit, a lot of people go, I don't have any stories. Like I'm just normal. And it's like normal stories are good. Everyone's again, because we're thinking they've got to be the big, climb Mount Everest stories. Or surviving cancer stories. They don't. It's just the day-to-day ones are the most powerful.
It's true, actually. Yeah, I always say that in every ordinary life there's extraordinary experiences, because nobody is going to see that grocery store the same way you're going to see the grocery store, or the way you're talking to your mother, or the way you found a little bird outside and you don't know what to do with it. I mean, there's so many little things that are so cool that people forget.
I just walk around going, oh wow, I could use that as a story. Or I'll be out with my kids and something will happen and I take a photo and I just go, you're going to blog about that, aren't you, Mum? I go, yep, I am.
I love it. I do want to tell everybody about your jargon-free Fridays.
Yes.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is one of the funniest things. I watched a few of them earlier and I was like, hands down, this is genius. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I guess part of my thing about using personal stories in business is I just have this passion about our default language in business is jargon. So we try to make ourselves sound really intelligent by using all these jargon words like operationalization and visualization. And if we just use real words, people would connect with them. And if we use stories, people would connect. So I had this idea about, giving up jargon's hard, but what if we just gave it up for 1 day a week? If you took up the challenge on a Friday to go jargon-free Friday. And I also thought if we use jargon in any other aspect of our life, it would be, people would just call it out for how ridiculous it sounds. And so the videos you're referring to, I got made up the really short ones about if jargon was used in a marriage proposal.
Oh, out loud.
That's one of my favorites. And, if jargon was used, to explain sex to your kids, that was, we filmed all those in 1 day and my hardest job was just sitting in the background trying not to laugh. So, so that's like a separate website, jargonfreefridays.com and, then there's my website too. But
I'll post those down below because I think everyone should see those. That was great. That was great. Yeah. Well, thank you, Gabrielle. I feel like, and it's Gabrielle? Did I say it wrong?
Gabrielle, yeah.
My New York and West Coast get confused sometimes.
That's okay.
It's been such a pleasure. You're awesome.
Thank you. It's been a great interview.
I adore you. I think I'm excited to see your new website when it comes out. Don't forget to send that to me.
I will.
And have a great day. I mean, just keep doing what you're doing. And I believe it's early there. You're in Australia.
It's early in the morning and a nice sun streaming through the window, which is fabulous.
Have a beautiful day and thank you again.
Okay, thanks, Dawn.
Okay, bye.
Bye.